Cameron, this question will be for you. It's going a little bit of a different direction. The state GOP plans to start airing a controversial ad on Monday using clips of Barack Obama's former minister and tying it to the state gubernatorial Democrats. Now, Senator McCain has asked that this ad be pulled. Do you think running this ad will hurt mountain primaries? The mountain primaries.
No, I don't think it will hurt the mountain primaries. I think it is a statement of concern about the future of this country by an organization that represents all Republicans. The concern, of course, is what we all have heard about Senator Obama and what he represents and who the people are that he surrounds himself with. And I think we all know about Hillary, and I think the state party was just making an effort to make sure that all the voters are reminded that the option to Senator McCain is just really not acceptable to any real thinking person who wants the future of this country to be what it can be, which is not under the dominance of a large government program that will control our lives across the spectrum. So I don't really see how that would happen.
I could not be a stronger supporter of freedom of speech, because the First Amendment is what I've practiced in the United States Supreme Court for 33 years, and that includes supporting people who say the exact opposite of what I think, and it would cheerfully put me in a re-education camp if they had a shot to do it. I start with that. Secondly, it is not the business of any presidential candidate to tell a state political party what it has to do or not do. Third, even though some people attack this ad, there's no suggestion that there's any dishonesty in the ad. That every word that appears there is true, that every statement that appears there was made. And as for the effect on mountain primaries, I think that people out here are smart enough to make their own decisions on their own candidates in their own way, and that this particular issue will have almost nothing to do with what happens in the primary where the three of us are running.
I think this is one of the most courageous acts I've ever seen out of the Republican Party, period. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the state party for having the courage to step forward and take some action. I hope this is the beginning of a Republican-wide effort to speak up, stand up.
Well, I'm going to address this question to you. Heath Shuler has amassed a large war chest to prepare for the general election. What one issue do you feel Congressman Shuler is most vulnerable to?
What was the last part?
What one issue do you feel Congressman Shuler is most vulnerable to?
His voting record. Heath Shuler's a nice guy, but in Washington, he votes one way and then he comes home and talks another way. Heath Shuler is not a conservative. His first vote was for Nancy Pelosi, an avowed socialist, to run arguably the most important elected body in America. Heath Shuler does one thing there, says another thing here. I intend to illuminate his voting record with every power I have. I think it haunts him, and there are more tough votes coming ahead. Thank you.
I agree with what Carl said, and I'd like to add another point to that. Mr. Shuler is a member of a liberal Democratic Party, and yet he says he's a conservative. And he sometimes votes that way, but I think he does that with the approval of his leadership, which means his votes are just taken for political purposes, not in the legitimate interest of improving the lives of the people of Western North Carolina. And he'll do that every day of his life that Nancy tells him to. And he'll come back here and say, she never told me to do anything. I heard that at the Rotary Club a month ago. Nancy Pelosi never tells me how to vote. Sorry, she tells him every day how to vote. And the end result for the people of Western North Carolina is you won't be getting anything out of Congress anytime soon, as long as he is the congressman for this district.
The main issue on which Heath Shuler can be defeated is hypocrisy. Let me tell you about the latest vote that Heath Shuler cast. It was on Thursday. I found it on the internet this morning. How many of you know what the Delta Queen is? It's a national landmark that happens to move. It's an original steamboat. Well, it operates on the Mississippi with overnight cruises only with the permission of Congress, giving a waiver from a certain provision of the Coast Guard. Well, somebody wanted to save the Delta Queen, got that issue on the floor of the House. And guess which way Heath Shuler voted? He voted to kill the Delta Queen. It is something, it's an historical monument. It's a source of joy to anybody who sees it or uses it. Why did he do that? Because the unions told him to do so. And this isn't the first time, second time, third time, or 20th time he has voted with the unions. Remember, he voted for the bill that would take away secret ballots in union elections, so that union officials could stand there and make sure that you voted the right way. Well, that's not American. That's not Western Carolina. That's Heath Shuler.
This one for Spence Campbell, and then moving around the circle, if I could, over there. At the time Charles Taylor lost the last election, or lost the election in 2006, there were over $100 million in earmarks that he had set aside for the use and benefit of the 11th district that died as a subsequent, due to Heath Shuler vote. Some were subsequently revived, but most of that money was lost. As a congressman, will you participate in earmarking for your district?
No way. I think earmarks are not what the American people need, not what the people of this district need, because they've been tainted by the way that the Congress has abused them. There's sometimes you don't even know who put them into the bill, that you don't know why they're there, you don't know who's being supported, and that's not the way the government should function. The government budgeting process should be open and above board, and all citizens should be able to tell who's putting bills together that address whatever issue may be addressed with the financing. Some of those earmarked projects were worthwhile, like the broadband network that came into Western North Carolina under Mr. Taylor's leadership. But just because they're worthwhile doesn't mean they should be funded by earmarks. They should be funded as part of the annual budgeting process, where we can see who votes for and who votes against, whatever it is the issues are that are contained in the budget. So I won't support earmarks under any circumstance.
It's interesting to note that some of the earmarks that Charles Taylor put in the pipeline came out after Heath Shuler was elected, and he then claimed credit for having gotten these funds. It's amazing how bipartisan rating of the Treasury can work that way. I am opposed to earmarks as a cancer on the body politic. And they work down to a level which is clearly unconstitutional, where someone slips a cocktail napkin in the pocket of the chairman of the committee that says $10 million for Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then they sort it out later. That's not even a law, and yet the money flows. The simple fact is that projects in districts should be decided on a rational basis and a public basis, the same way we did when I was on the American Leukemia Society board, and we had to pass out $10 million in research every year. But we had doctors vet the process, and we took them in the order the doctors said they were important. It can be properly done. Right now, it is a cancer.
Earmarks, hidden or otherwise, are a feed the bear program for humans, and it produces the same outcome. I am not in support of earmarks. Here's what I am in support of. What we have now is we send our tax money to Washington, they skim it, and send it back selectively to create power. And they manipulate those in service, and they manipulate us with those dollars. What I'm interested in is making sure that Western North Carolina keeps as many dollars in our pocket as we can, resisting that process, but holding the federal government accountable for their promises to us, to veterans, Social Security, disability, and other things. At the district office in Greenville, South Carolina, we have 6,000 people on the waiting list for Social Security disability. I'm confident some of those people are abusing the system. But that's an example of the inefficiency of federal government. We can come up with $4 million for a park in front of Asheville City Hall, but we can't fix that system.